You're listening to The Silver Stoner Show.
Hey, dudes, dudettes, trans dudes and dudettes, and everyone else out in the world who may listen to my mellifluous voice. It is I, E.H. Ivins, Uncle Herb, the Silver Stoner, and this is another edition of our live stream. As always, I open with the 5 tenets of being a stoner, understanding that this is not a show about getting stoned on a sofa with a bunch of guys in a basement and laughing like they're on Pineapple Express, but instead we are recreating what it means to be a stoner towards people who have open minds and are creative in thought. And to that end, I created, and when I say I created, I borrowed substantially from other places. Let's be honest, there are very few original thoughts in the world, but here are the 5 tenets of being a stoner, which are: number 1, I own my body. Number 2, my property is my own. Number 3, most often the best thing to do is nothing. Number 4, what is number 4? Oh, your fight is not my fight. I'm doing this from memory, which is great. You know, I don't use a teleprompter, guys. I actually have a brain. And number 5, what was number 5? No one can control my thoughts or emotions but me. You know, I wrote it, but that doesn't mean I can remember it. But anyway, if you can adhere to these 5 tenets, and, you know, like, no one's perfect. You know, if you fuck it up, it's like if you own your own body, you must respect that everybody else owns their own body, okay? So, like, if you have a relative who is doing something self-destructive, just don't say anything at all, okay? They own their body, you own yours, and true freedom is the freedom to even do dumb things if that's what you want to do, okay? If you want to mainline heroin, it's just none of my business, and that's why, as a stoner, is just one example, we believe in the complete legalization of all drugs, but we'll get into that more as the show goes on. You get the point. Meanwhile, let's move along and get into the still Silver Stoners news, left, right, and stoner. When I say left, right, and stoner, that means that on these issues, if I cover an issue, and I'm not just quipping about something, I'll tell you what the left thinks, I'll tell you what the right thinks, and I'll tell you what a stoner might think. Now, when I say might think, let me reiterate, because this is a brand new show and it's nascent stage. So let me just say that if I say anything or do anything that you don't agree with, just chime in on the live stream and tell me I'm fucked in the head and I'll discuss it. I am here to facilitate, not necessarily to lead. I'm not running for office. I don't care what you say about me. It's okay. I care in the sense that obviously I'd like to be, you know, friends and on a great level with you here on the Silver Stoner and within our community. But at the very same time, I'm not trying to control your thoughts or emotions, just give you some food for thought. So let's start with our first story today, which is Chicago's Mayor Lightfoot won't grant interviews to white reporters. And when I read this, I originally read this in the Wall Street Journal, and I thought, well, that's a pretty conservative publication. Maybe this isn't really true. Maybe this is fake news. But no, I saw it in USA Today, the New York Times, and everything else. It is not fake news. In fact, Mayor Lightfoot has decided that she will not do an interview with any reporter who isn't of color. Now, I wish I were making this up. I mean, look, guys, I'm not a Chicagoan, okay? I've been in Chicago many times. I have family in Chicago. God bless Chicago. God bless everything about Chicago. But guys, you know, like, if you choose to run for office, do you not represent and or lead all the people that you are involved with, including the people that work in your city like reporters? And is it somehow, how can you say you won't talk to an entire race of people, not to mention the majority race in the United States? I mean, whether you like it or you don't like it, or whether it's true or it's false, you know, it is what it is. And I don't really understand this point of view. Mayor Lightfoot, you need a cannabis suppository. And, you know, I don't want to get into racial issues. This has nothing to do with racial issues. This has to do with the politician who is using racial issues to avoid tough questions, obviously. And so I don't even know what party. I'm guessing Mayor Lightfoot's a Democrat just because it's Chicago, but what do I know? Listen, party aside, you can't dodge. If you're going to be the kind of person that wants to pursue power, you got to answer the fucking questions. Anyway, what do I know? I don't even know that that's really stoner related. I just bring it up because it's just so amazing. This is why we are an open culture of creative people. If you want to ask, for example, me a tough question, and God knows I have a checkered past, I'm never going to dodge it. And why? You get it. Let's not. Can you believe that, Tech Master E, that there's a I mean, it's just hard to imagine. I don't know. Anyway, let's move along. Does the school shrink or your kid's school psychologist cause mental illness? Now, I bring this up because the statistics are astounding on the number of children in elementary school through high school who are taking a wide variety of antipsychotic, antidepressive, anti-anxiety drugs prescribed, and the huge increase in diagnoses of this. And the question is this a Gen Z phenomenon, or is this a product of social media? I'm going to tell you what I think it is. First of all, and I just want to relate to you as an anecdote. So for years and years, my children all went. We experimented with public school for a while. Then I decided that my children were not a social experiment. I shouldn't say I. We, my then wife and I, decided that our children were not a social experiment, and we sent them to private school, which is, by the way, no different than most of the politicians who, on one hand, support public school but privately send their children somewhere else because they'll be happy to experiment with your children, but they don't experiment with their own. So we didn't experiment with ours either, and we sent them to private school. Now, as a result of that, and I've said this before, and I don't want to be redundant, but just so that you know, I've always said the good thing about private school is that the parents are very involved, and the bad thing about private school is that the parents are very involved. There's a lot of vicarious living in private school, and there's a lot of doping up of the kids, and I learned that because my then wife and I, used to volunteer to be the chaperones on overnight field trips. This little private school did a lot of overnights. We used to go to CIMI, which is the Catalina Island Marine Institute, every year for a dive trip. By the way, those of you who have never been to Catalina Island or never visited the West Coast, it's just great. We went all over the country on chess tournaments, field trips, Washington, D.C., Boston, Massachusetts, and at the start of every trip, the parents would come to me as the chaperone and give me the pills for their kids. And I'm going to tell you a little secret that I never told the parents. I never gave those kids a single fucking pill, okay? I used to just throw them out and hand the parents back empty bags so they thought they had doped up their kids. Because I always felt, and I still feel, and you may think I'm horrible for having done this, but I think it's just lazy parenting and shitty schooling. Okay, so jumpy, fidgety, particularly boys, and in the article that I read this morning that kicked this all off in my mind, they were harping on boys. Boys will be boys. Boys are jumpy and fidgety and hop around. And, we have a lot, because of either one parent or two parent families, we have a lot of exhausted parents at the end of the day. And it is easier to dope your kids up rather than parent. But I always found, and I was just as busy as every other parent back in the day when my kids were, actively in school, and now they're all adults. But anyway, when we would start these field trips, let me just tell you how I would start these field trips. I'd get all the kids together on the field trip, and I'd say, kids, there are 2 rules on this field trip. And they'd all sit there, yes, sir, yes, sir. And I'd go, the first rule is, don't bug me. Don't bug me means if I tell you to do something once, I don't really want to tell you twice. And I find that children respond well to boundaries. I am not I was never a parent, and I'm not a grandparent now who pleads with children. Why are you doing it? Because I'm dad and you're not, okay? I'm an adult and you are a child. You are going to do what I say. So when I would lay down the rule in my very fatherly way with my deep voice and all that kind of stuff, I would just say, rule number 1 is don't bug me. And I'd say it just like that, which I call daddy voice. All right, kids, sit down. That can't be imitated male voice of order and authority that is missing in so many young children's lives. But anyway, right away I tell them the second rule is, and if you don't have fun, I'll kill you. Okay, now I have to tell you, the kids always would laugh at that. And then for the rest of the trip, they'd run around going, we're having fun, don't kill us. And they would listen to me just because they were having fun. And the moral of the story is, if you keep children engaged and you have a strict boundary, you don't need to dope them up with Ritalin, okay, or anything else. And the other part of it is that if teachers are bitching and moaning that the kid is fidgety in school, before you go to dope your children up, consider that the subject is being taught by a mediocre teacher in a boring fucking way. How come we never question, is this a boring fucking class? How many classes did we sit through as children where we were bored out of our mind? I was. I mean, weren't you? Tech Master E, did you ever sit through a class where you were bored out of your mind?
Out my mind?
Out your mind? And let me ask you a question. As a young boy, were you not fidgety in that class?
Yeah, I was twitchy.
Did your parents feel like they had to dope you up? I'm just curious.
Not at all.
Okay.
Not back then.
No, you didn't. And neither. And, you know, consider that around the world, there are people. One of the great luxuries of living in the United States is we have time to worry about if our kids are fidgety. But, you know, in Ghana, I think that's the last thing on their fucking mind, okay? We don't have a bunch of mentally ill children fraught by anxiety in our social media culture. We have a lot of lazy parents and shitty teachers who don't know how to be parents and teachers. That's my opinion, not a fact. I invite you to share. But frankly, if I wanted to dope my children up, I'd use weed, and I don't dope my children up. But I don't understand pumping them full of Ritalin, which is a stimulant. I mean, anyway, I'm not pumping speed into my children. Call me crazy, but that's how I feel. You can disagree with me. You disagree with me, Techmaster?
No, I don't disagree.
Okay, so we'll just stick with it. All right, so let's move out of the classroom and go on to President Senile's newest idea, which is the global minimum tax. Now, I mentioned this. He keeps changing it. Yesterday it was a global minimum corporate tax. Today it's a global minimum tax of 15%. Here's how the president's, his argument, and this is the argument from the left, is we don't want it to be a race to the bottom for which country can have the lowest tax rate. So therefore, let's set a 15% minimum global tax, and that way no other country can take unfair advantage of another country by making its taxes lower. To which I answer, why would we want to stifle the competition between countries? That's number one. I mean, I don't know about you guys. I love America, but, you know, if America turned to shit, I'd want to go somewhere else. And if the whole world was a shithole, that wouldn't be an option, would it? I mean, you know,
Yep.
Number two, the whole world is going to decentralization except government. I mean, just think about it. Think of how Amazon, a huge company, distributes goods. It puts warehouses all over the country. It decentralizes and makes sure that it's spread out everywhere. And you can see decentralization taking place everywhere except in government, okay, because they try to hoard power onto themselves. And third, fuck, do you really want to share your information with the whole planet? I don't. Okay. And on the right, of course, this isn't going to happen because nobody in Europe is stupid enough to go along with this. Nobody in Asia is stupid enough to go. I don't know where the president came up with this. I think it's because his synapses aren't all firing. Am I the only one? When you see him walking and talking, do you not see a really old man?
He's an old dude.
I mean, he walks like an old man. I mean, look, I'm an old dude. I'm 64. I'm not that old, but I'm an old dude. But do I walk and talk like an old dude? Do I look like I'm shuffling when I walk? I can't tell. No, okay. Just want to make sure because he's
my nominee.
Biden's got that old guy shuffle going on, right? And they try to hide it. But anyway, God bless him. But stupid idea. Let's just, you know how much the tax rate ought to be? Zero. We should all be operating on user fees, okay? But that's another discussion for another day. All right. From the ridiculous to the sublimely ridiculous, oh goody, another sequel to a movie that nobody gave a shit about to begin with. If you might turn the clock back, and I can remember this movie, Sarah Jessica Parker, Bette Midler, and who was it? Kathy Najimy, all starred in a movie called Hocus Pocus that was okay back in the day. It did okay in the theaters. It did okay in video release. It was okay. But because there is no creativity left in show business, they are now making, I shit you not, Hocus Pocus 2 with the same 3 stars 20 years later. I think it's like 20 years. I'm not sure exactly, but like...
Is that the Stoner edition?
Well, you'd have to be stoned to watch this movie. This is going to be just like... Did you see that flick that on Netflix that Martin Scorsese made? I'm talking like I know him, Martin Scorsese made with Robert De Niro that they put on and they had to cover up how fucking old he was with computer-generated, it's just scary. You know, when you, look, Sarah Jessica Parker increasingly could play the Wicked Witch with just green makeup and no prosthetics. I'm just saying. And as for Bette Midler and Kathy Najimy, I mean, God bless them all. But, you know, was there any outcry to make another Hocus Pocus? Is this it? Are we just scraping the bottom of the barrel in the entertainment? The only good thing about this, well, you know what they're going to do for this? There's no good thing about this. Do you know what they're going to do? And I haven't seen the movie, obviously. It hasn't been made yet. It's going to be a fucking lesson. It's going to be I promise, 8,000 bisexual and gay characters and people that make no sense in the roles they're in. I have no problem with gay and bisexual characters if they make sense in the fucking story. But when you write a story to teach me something, so you have to fucking manufacture these crazy roles to inject people into, it makes no... Look, entertain us. Stop teaching us. Okay. But I was
Maybe
going...
someone knows Sarah Jessica Parker. One of the listeners.
I was actually hot. You know, there was a time back in the day when I was hot for her. Did you ever see that movie with Steve Martin? What was it called? L.A. Story. This is a long time ago. And Steve Martin plays this weatherman in L.A., and he falls for Sarah Jessica Parker, and she plays this hippie chick that's twirling all the time. And her name is Sandy, and she spells her name. And Steve Martin, when he first meets her, says, "Oh, thank God, a normal name." She says, "Yes, Sandy, SANDEE, smiley face, hashtag, question mark." I mean, it was just one of those silly fucking L.A. make fun of stories. It was really funny. And he was bored because the weather forecast in L.A., in case you guys don't know this, Southern California is the best weather in the world. I know you guys living in Southern California know that, but when you live particularly along the coastline, it's perfect all the time. It's, 72 degrees, 68 to 72 year-round, all the time. And virtually, when that song, "It Never Rains in Southern California," they aren't bullshitting. It, like, never is... It's like Phoenix. It rains a couple of days a year, and that's about it. So, why did I bring that all up anyway? Where did I go with that fucking Southern California great weather thing?
I have no idea.
I derailed my train of thought. Well, fuck that.
Let's switcheroo.
This is what happens when I smoke marijuana before the show. Guys, the reason I don't smoke pot on the show is because I don't want to be demonetized by YouTube. But if you go to, just to make a little note, in the next couple of days, and maybe by the time you're already watching this, you already know, we're going to have a Patreon page, and on that Patreon page for $4.20, you'll have, where do we get that number? You'll both be supporting the show, and you'll be able to get the content too high for YouTube, where we do smoke and joke and have fun and talk about anything, not really issues. But having said all that, that is still, Techmaster E's in charge of that. How far away are we, Techmaster?
Oh, it's close.
Is it close?
It is really close.
Oh, cool.
Have it, open early next week.
Cool. Okay. What is that person saying? I can't really read that print on who's live streaming with me. What's she saying? Is she shooting at me? Nah, doesn't matter. The hell with it. All right. Moving right along. By the way, that doesn't mean the hell with you, sweetheart. I'm sweetheart. Look at me. What an old man I am. And I catch myself, but sometimes I just forget. I forget that I'm a boomer, and I'll say things like sweetie and honey to girls, and I mean nothing. Again, I bring this up from, I'm not a creeper, but if I like you, I affect my speech, and I don't want to have to fucking monitor it. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Okay, moving along, still in show business. And I just love this story just because Angelina Jolie is a really interesting woman. Now, I can tell she's batshit crazy, and I wouldn't date her for all the tea in China, because the one advantage of being a boomer is I am not controlled by my gonads any longer, so I can see trouble coming. So if I actually met a crazy woman like her, although I find her very hot, I know it's hot because she's crazy, and I wouldn't want to get involved in that at this stage in my life where, like 20 years ago, I would have gone for it just because I'm an idiot. I'm a guy. But she decided she wanted to make a statement about this. Today, by the way, is International Bee Day. And that's a really important day. Bees worldwide are suffering issues. I don't know what's causing it, climate change, population density, blah, blah, blah. But regardless of whatever it is, she did this thing where she appeared, and that wasn't computer-generated graphics. She actually stood there. Those are live bees, okay, covered with bees, and she was wearing no protective garments. And, here's what I have to say to Angelina Jolie. Talk about putting your money where your mouth is. You may be batshit crazy, and you may have done some wacko things. You may adopt children from all over the planet, which I find kind of crazy. Not that you shouldn't love children. Of course, if I had your money, why not? But having said all that, wow, good for you, Angelina Jolie, and ballsy. Would you do that, Techmaster E? Would you let bees crawl over you?
Hell no.
I probably would, because I'm a Meshuggah. Meshuggah is your new Yiddish word for today. It means crazy person. Okay. Anyway, still in show business, because I just got stuck on it this morning. Yesterday I bitched and moaned about the remake. It's not a remake. They're doing a prequel to Cruella de Vil. I don't know why anyone would be interested in knowing the development of a woman that wanted to make a fur coat out of Dalmatian puppies but they're making it with Emma Stone, and I'm sure it'll be a object lesson in public shaming and virtue signaling, like all movies are that come out of Disney these days, like the previous live-action ruination of a good animated movie called Mulan, which was horrible, but no one watched it because who's going to pay $40, I'm rounding, to watch a pay-per-view? That's insane. And I feel that this will reach the same fate, but maybe I'm wrong. But regardless, they got Florence and the Machine to do the title track, and for that alone, it might be worth watching. This is just a Silver Stoner preference thing. I love Florence and the Machine, although Shake It Out is my favorite song. Are you familiar with Flo and the Machine? Florence and the Machine? She's awesome because she kind of has a great stage presence. She's English. And anyway, they're a great group. The only reason to see that movie, as far as I'm concerned, is to listen to the soundtrack. We play it all for you, but then we get into all kinds of legal issues and, go to music jail. But, we played a little bit for you anyway, and trust me, it's going to be good. All right. But now... Let me play it for him. Okay, go ahead and play it for him. Would you play it for him? See, that was pretty good. That's Florence and the Machine. I mean, she's fucking awesome. But, I like the visuals, by the way. I'm a big fan of Emma Stone. This is like this well-cast, well-costumed, great music, but you just know it's going to be a clusterfuck. I hope I'm wrong. But everything Disney touches these days is a clusterfuck, so I don't know why it wouldn't, Again, it's just because they've run out of ideas. They're fucking up animated movies, and while they're at it, they're trying to teach you shit about life that is just, as a stoner, look, live and let live, man. Left, right, center, believe what you want. And, anyway, I almost digressed again. I'm not going to do it. Let's move on to the next bullshit story of entertainment, which is, get this, Netflix has announced that they're having the writers of the new Sherlock Holmes, Enola Holmes 2. So the first Enola Holmes, which, by the way, if you have actually read Arthur Conan Doyle and Sherlock Holmes, there is no Enola Holmes character in the actual no shit show, or books of Sherlock Holmes. But they created this Enola Holmes so that Millie Bobby Brown would have a character to play. And by the way, awesome young actress. Again, I'm not attacking the actors. Henry Cavill plays Sherlock Holmes, and he's great too. And, I loved him as Superman, all that other kind of good shit. I'm not here to, knock the actors. However, having said all of that, they're making her, in this remake, they're writing Sherlock Holmes as bisexual. Again, look, if Sherlock Holmes was a bisexual character, and if his sexuality even mattered in the books, and I read them all, and as far as I know, there was never a mention of Sherlock Holmes dating in the Arthur Conan Doyle books, and it's just immaterial to the storylines and plot lines. It wasn't very long ago that they were making decent Sherlock Holmes movies. I refer you to Robert Downey Jr. and Jude Law as Dr. Watson, when they still made movies prior to 2016 where they weren't trying to teach you every fucking thing in the world about social distance, social life. I don't know. But anyway, I'm just grossed out by this. Look, you want to write a story about a bisexual detective, then write a story about a bisexual detective where it makes sense in the course of the story. But when you turn a classic character, you're throwing out the canon, in this case, of nearly 200 years. What the fuck are you thinking about? Who's going to watch this fucking movie? Because the people that like Sherlock Holmes are going to immediately vomit all over the table at the thought of watching this because you're ruining the story. And then who's left? Teenagers to watch Millie Bobby Brown? I mean, God, it's just a mind blower to me. All right, and speaking of mind blowers, let's get off entertainment. This is going to bring me to my currently favorite subject. A man was sentenced yesterday, or he was sentenced a long time ago. He's been appealing his sentence. This is a man in Mississippi. He's 38 years old, and his conviction was upheld. He's going to serve life in prison over 1.5 ounces of weed. Now, let us think about this just for a minute. We're legalizing all over the country, but are we really legalizing, or are we setting, why is it okay for me to own, an ounce of pot, but if I own an ounce and a half, I go to prison for the rest of my life? Is that more dangerous to have an ounce and a half of pot than an ounce? Or as we used to call it when I was a kid, a lid? Is that really, no one calls it that anymore, I'm dating myself, but I mean, the bottom line is pot isn't dangerous. If you had a trunk full of it And why do we limit how many plants you have? And why do we regulate it? Pot's a natural product. You know, unless you spray it with bug poison. And let me explain why you don't need to regulate and you don't need to worry about marijuana growers and producers spraying with bug poison. Because you don't grow big poisoning your fucking customers. And in the world, let's think like it's the 21st century, shall we, and not the 20th. We live in a world where if you went to a dispensary and bought a weed, some flour or any product, and it made you sick, would you not get all over the internet, social media, and say, don't go near this shit? I actually have a regular feature, which I haven't done recently. I did it on our very first show, and I'll do it again. It's called Avoid Like the Plague. I'd be on saying, don't go anywhere near this shit. You don't need regulators. We don't need bureaucrats. Us stoners can self-police, and the companies that serve us, if I can go to a liquor store and buy a trunk full of alcohol, which is 1,000 times more dangerous by every statistical measure, I dare you to fight me on this, than weed, why am I restricted? What fucking arbitrary, and who's doing this regulation? Politicians who don't smoke, man. I mean, that's who's writing this shit. Who on the Mississippi Supreme Court who put this guy away for 1.5 ounces of marijuana for the rest of his life has actually smoked weed? Or are they still remembering back in the day, because they're probably all fucking older than me, when they were watching Reefer Madness and thought it was a gateway drug to some fucking, and even if it was, which it isn't, so the fuck what? Your body is your own. Look, we're not legalizing pot. We're half-assed legalizing pot. And we're so excited that we can use small amounts legally that none of us stoners are doing the right thing here, which is to chime in and say, cut it out, because you know and I know that most of our friends, well, let me not say most, because I don't know that. There's no way for me to statistically verify, and I'm not going to turn into a bullshit artist like everybody else. Lots of our friends are still buying their weed from their dealers to avoid the sales tax, the excise taxes, the regulatory fees, and the higher cost of medical and recreational pot here in Arizona and in all the other states that are watching me all around the country and our countries around the world. What the fuck? Look, let me tell you what's going on here. The states are excited because they're going to get shit tons of tax revenue, and they can start a whole new bureaucracy to fucking ride roughshod over our lives with these pot regulators, where it should be a requirement that to regulate weed, at the very least, you ought to be stoned. Okay? I mean, and I'm not saying that to be funny. How do you regulate a product you don't use? I'm just throwing it out there. It would be like saying to a meat inspector that's a vegetarian, you'll be the head meat inspector. It doesn't make any fucking sense. It's like telling a guy who runs a dairy farm, who's, regulate dairy, but if you're, we are only going to hire those people that are lactose intolerant. I mean, it doesn't make any fucking sense.
We get it.
I know, but here's okay, so the states are excited about tax revenue. They're excited about bureaucracy, but what they're not excited about is what's good for us, which would be cheaper weed. Weed is a weed. We call it weed for a reason. Deregulate it. Let us grow all the fucking weed we want. Let the growers grow all they want. Let the market decide what's good weed and bad weed. Look, you walk into a grocery store. I'm like, after the show today, I'm going to go shopping, okay? And I'm going to walk into Safeway and I'm going to buy some frozen pizza because I am not married at this point and I eat frozen pizza on the weekend. It's like my treat. And I can tell you right now, I'm going to buy Freshetta. Now, why am I going to buy Freshetta, which is the most expensive grocery store pizza? Because in my experience, you get what you pay for. I could buy the El Cheapo shitty one that comes wrapped in plastic without any box on it, brand that I'm not going to,
Yeah.
And I could save a few dollars, but like what price my pleasure? I'm willing to, again, I'm a free consumer. I look at that case that's got dozens of brands of frozen pizza and I choose to buy the Freshetta. But I'm a free person. Maybe someone else on a tighter budget might have to buy the El Cheapo, okay? But regardless of what brand you buy, it's your fucking choice, and there are choices and there are price levels. But the way we're not really legalizing marijuana, we're not making it any cheaper, so we're not really we're not getting the third big benefit. The average stoner is spending, are you ready? This is a real statistic, $120 a week at the dispensary. If weed were legal, it would be at least half that, maybe a quarter. Okay, if your friends I've made my point, have I not?
Yes, you have.
But life in prison, Mississippi, you should be ashamed. And you know what you should do, President Biden? I'm not going to call you President senile now. You should declare a national amnesty for people, except that he's a president and those are state laws. See, the president can't pardon. One king can't rule another king. So that the president can't rule the governor and the governor can't rule the president. Okay, governors around the governor of Mississippi, I don't know who you are, governor of Mississippi, but whoever you are, pardon this guy, man. Come on, pardon them all. Let them out. Declare a blanket amnesty. When I was in prison, I'm telling you, it's ridiculous. All we're doing is teaching these people how to be professional criminals. I know I went on and on, but it drives me fucking crazy that someone could go to prison for the rest of their life because they were a half ounce heavy. That's all we're talking about. I mean, he had 1.5 ounces, but he was a half ounce heavier than what the law. Although Mississippi, I guess, is not. Is Mississippi? I don't even know. Is Mississippi on our legals? I know they're looking at it. That I know for a fact. I don't think it's gotten all the way through yet. That is the Bible Belt. By the way, if you've never experienced the Bible Belt of the United States, if you come from a place in the country where there's not a lot of religion, like let's say San Francisco, and you want to see what it looks like, why there's red states and blue, drive the South and watch. It's amazing. It's like a church every 23 minutes, and I'm not saying that pejoratively. Okay, I'm fine with churches and everything else, but anyway, where was I going? All right. Oh, what did they say? Let's see. Crazy to focus on harmless behavior. Tragic. I totally agree with that. Okay, that's Rebecca. Bless you. It is tragic to focus on harmless behavior, but isn't that what the government does? I mean, they regulate the size of drinks in New York City, of like how big a big gulp can you have? It's just so stupid. We own our own bodies. Do with it what you will. All right. Let's move along. Enough of this. Oh, let's go to my movie review. I'm so excited. Okay, so guys, this is the Silver Stoners weekend movie review. Now, as a boomer, I know that some of you who are millennial or Gen Z or whatever may not think, like I know what's going on, but I kind of do. I'm a kind of a movie freak. And it would be hard to say what my absolute favorite movie is. If I was really pressed, I might say Godfather 1, but that's so cliche. Let me give you a choice. For the movie that bounces up against Godfather 1 for me is not Citizen Kane. I mean, everyone always says Citizen Kane, greatest movie ever made. It's a pretty fucking good movie. But to me, the movie I'm recommending this weekend for you is the best movie, possibly the best movie ever made. It is black and white, and it's called Dr. Strangelove. It was the first major movie by Stanley Kubrick, who made tons of great movies, and he just died recently. Clockwork Orange and Apocalypse. Did he make it? No. Did he make Apocalypse Now? Not sure. I think maybe he did. Anyway, he's made tons of movies. Anyway, Dr. Strangelove stars Peter Sellers, who was the greatest comic genius in the history of movies. And after you watch this, you'll understand. First of all, you'll forget it's black and white in about 20 seconds. Just like when you watch Schindler's List back in the day, not that long ago, and you forgot it was black and white after about 5 minutes, and it made sense in the context of the story, of this dark story. Well, Dr. Strangelove is about, the title of the movie is Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Love the Bomb. And it's a serious comedy movie of the world out of control. And Peter Sellers plays the President of the United States, a British attaché to a crazy American Air Force officer, and Dr. Strangelove himself. I think those are the only 3 roles he plays. But look, go home. And by the way, I checked this out. It's free on Hulu. It's available, I think, for a small rental fee, or actually, if you do one of those free samples on Amazon Prime, one of the services has it for free. Netflix has it for free. It's around. YouTube has it, I think, for free, or a nominal charge. Best movie ever made. Unbelievably great. George C. Scott. What a cast. George C. Scott is in it. It plays General Jack Ripper. You love the name? Jack? Anyway. You're just going to love it. It's absolutely. I don't want to ruin it for you. But if you've never watched it, and by the way, the special effects and the B-52s flying and all this kind of shit are obvious. But it kind of works because you're watching a black and white movie from the 1960s, and so kind of the cheesy B-52 flying along, which is clearly a paper cutout, it kind of works in its weird way. Just check it out, love it. That's my recommendation for the weekend. Have we played the clip? Here we go. Play the clip.
Attack!
Russia.
Oh. Base.
10 females to each male.
The Coca-Cola machine.
Fluids.
The Doomsday Machine.
Blast off!
Where's my shorts?
Where's the bathroom?
Buck, should I get it?
On the hotline.
Dr. Strangelove.
Or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and
Love the bomb. A moving picture.
I shouldn't tell you this, Mandrake, but you're a good officer and you have a right to know. It looks like we're in a shooting war.
Hell. All the Russians have arms.
Well, boys, I reckon this is it. Nuclear combat toe-to-toe with the Ruskies.
I don't like the look of this, Fred. I tell you what you better do, old buddy.
I was under the impression that I was the only one in authority to order the use of nuclear weapons.
That's right, sir. You are the only person authorized to do so. And although I hate to judge before all the facts are in, it's beginning to look like General Ripper exceeded his authority.
I first became aware of it, Mandrake, during the physical act of love.
Missile still deflecting. Range 1 mile. Start lever to cut off. Cut off. Station power.
And we're back. I could have let that go on, but we decided to not watch the movie. Best movie ever made, tied with Godfather 1. Enough I have to say. All right. While we're talking about flying objects, I want to move on to, this has been a big story for the last few days. UFOs, evidently, and I've been getting a lot of people sending me like, have you seen this? Have you seen this? UFOs are real. UFOs are real. Okay, guys. Here's the question. Are UFOs aliens? Everyone, this shows you, this is a case, I bring this up, this is a case study in binary thinking. This is how people really come up with weird shit and believe strange things, okay? What is the first word? Tech Mastery, UFO, what does that stand for? What does that acronym stand for, UFO?
unidentified
Flying object. What's the first word?
U.
Unidentified. No one knows what the fuck they are, okay? That we make the leap to space alien. Okay, first of all, let me start here. Do I believe there are aliens in space? Well, to paraphrase Albert Einstein, if there isn't, it sure is a lot of fucking wasted space, okay? I'm sure that somewhere out there in the infinity of the universe, and by the way, I do believe, as current physics posits, that there are multiple universes, maybe an infinite number of multiple universes, all laying kind of upon one each other at a different time on different timelines. To think that in all those infinities and all those universes at all that time, that there's no other intelligent or alien life out there in the vast expanse of space is absurd. At least to me, that's not binary thinking. It's just, the odds are we can't possibly be the only little speck, in the universe of life in the whole thing. Now, having said that, I think it's also nearly impossible, because I understand relativity, that they're visiting us. Now, what do I mean by that? I don't want to go down in the weeds too much, so just Google and fact check what I'm about to say. Einstein and relativity, one of the things that we draw from relativity is that you cannot exceed the speed of light. And when you get up, the closer and closer that you get to the speed of light, the more and more time bends. And I know that that's hard to wrap your brain around. If you really want to, try to understand it, read the book, A Brief History of Time by Stephen Hawking. Now, Stephen Hawking God rest his soul, was a genius, and he tried to dumb it down. He was the guy that they did that movie with Jennifer Connelly called A Beautiful Mind. And you know, and he would that's a whole different movie. That was Russell Crowe, which was the one with Stephen Hawking. Anyway, it doesn't fucking matter. He was played by that British actor that played the Danish girl, but I can't think of his name. But anyway, that's neither. My mind. The point is, for an alien, in other words, if we were the closest star to us that has planets around it, we think is Alpha Centauri. It's 11 light years away. So if we built on Earth a spaceship that could travel at the speed of light and launched it to Alpha Centauri, and it took 11 years for it to get there at the speed of light, and it turned right around immediately and flew back for the next 11 years, so it was 22 years later. On Earth, it would be something like 300 years later. And I know that's weird, but everyone you know and every place you've been and everything you think you know would all be gone with the speed of technology wiping it out. And this is why interstellar travel, and it's the idea of going faster than the speed of light, is great for Star Trek, but probably not possible. So the chances that aliens from some distant star with habitable life is visiting Earth that one I have a little problem with, and I have a huge problem with the binary thinking. The fact is that most of these, for example, over Phoenix a couple years ago, do you remember the V-shaped UFOs that were over Phoenix a couple years ago? Did you remember that story? Everyone in Phoenix saw it. The whole city saw it. There were lights over the city. They were a V-shape. They called in everywhere. Everyone went crazy.
Don't remember.
Okay, this happened you guys, you can Google this up. Anyway, to make a long story short, it was B-52s flying out of Davis-Monthan Air Force Base in Tucson. And they were the sound had just somehow, there was an atmospheric condition, and it was pitch black at night, and you could just see the lights on the wings, and they mistook it. The people of the city, not millions, but certainly thousands of people thought they saw aliens. The fact of the matter is, the reason you've never seen a clear picture of an alien spacecraft that's always a blurry long shot dipping into the water somewhere is because there are no clear pictures of aliens. And if you were an alien visiting Earth, you wouldn't have to hide. Your technology would be so superior to our own. And I know what you're saying. You're saying, well, maybe they're a member of the United Federation of Planets and they have a no interference policy. Yeah, it's possible. It could be Captain Kirk out there. You know, it could be a reverse thing with space aliens who don't want to fuck around with our primitive civilization. Anything's possible. But the only point I make is doesn't mean, anything but unknown. And jumping to conclusions, you should think about why you jump to that conclusion. How fantastic is that? People have active imaginations, do they not? And I know with that people are going to write in and say, but there are space aliens. Yeah, I'm sure there are. They're just not visiting us. Okay. Next. Look, this next story really doesn't, I don't have to say anything. I just want you to, is the video queued up for this, Techmaster? This image. Okay, check this shit out. This cat jumped off a 5-story building and landed on his feet and walked away. I wish you could see the whole, you guys will be able to Google this up and check this out. This cat literally jumped off a 5-story building, went all the way to the ground, landed on his feet, and walked away. Cats do have 9 lives. I don't know why I brought that up, but I just thought it was cool. I just thought it was neat shit. All right, let's move on to the Daily Dow, okay? Oh, well, that's what I'm talking about with the Daily Dow. Okay, so what I'm going to do, the Dow, a lot of our philosophy on this show, and a lot of my philosophy, and the philosophy of my partners, and a lot of people I know, are Taoist. Now, it's spelled T-A-O. It looks like Tao, but it's Tao. The Tao was written about 650 years, it's one of those things that over the years it's been contributed to, but the original text, like the Bible, was written 650 years before Christ. Okay, and it was written originally by a man named Lao Tzu, and Lao Tzu said, and this is just one quote, and this is the reason I love the Tao, when they lose their sense of awe, people turn to religion. When they no longer trust themselves, they begin to depend upon authority. Therefore, the master steps back so that people won't be confused. He teaches without teaching so that people will have nothing to learn. Now, that sounds contradictory in and of itself, but let me explain it to you. And then this is going to bring in our broader discussion of religion, which is why I want you I want to talk about the religion as I transition to that Techmastery as we talk about this. There's a difference between God and religion. I am not here to argue with you about the existence of God. I myself am agnostic, and I use the term agnostic as opposed to atheist because atheists are such assholes, okay? In other words, I'm not, do I really believe, here, let me back up. I think there's a spectrum of belief. This is just my theory. You guys can chime in and tell me. And on one end is, let's call it a 1 to 10 spectrum. And the people on the ones are the people that will say, like me, I really, really doubt it. They're not zero. I couldn't look you in the eye and say I have no belief in God. I doubt it, but it's possible. But I'm at the extreme fringe of I doubt it. And on the other end of the spectrum, at the 9 level, okay, because there's nobody that's a 10, are the people that are damn near positive. Now, they can look at, I have many Christian friends who will look at me and LDS friends who are also Christian. And I know that other Christians think they're a cult. I don't want to get into that whole fucking discussion. But they'll look me in the eye and say, they absolutely know there's a God. No, they absolutely believe there's a God. They have faith. And what is faith but believing in something that can't be true? So if you look at facts, there can't be a God. But on the other hand, facts aren't everything, and we don't really know all the facts. We know about 5% of what the universe holds for us, and who only knows if in that other 95% there isn't a central intelligence somewhere out there that's the creator of everything in this particular universe, although I don't really buy that he would be the creator, and I use the term he as generic. I'm pretty sure if there is a God, it's an it, because a God would have no need to reproduce, and the only reason to have a dick or a vagina is to reproduce, so why would God have gender at all? But that's just the way my mind works, so you can tell me what you think. I know there are plenty of people that think God's a man and blah, 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 but these are people that aren't thinking this all the way through, I think. But the bottom line is I'm not an atheist because I'm not an asshole. If you're a strong believer, good, that's fine. But understand that there's a difference between religion and God, and I can tell you for sure, with no fear of being contradicted except by the most extreme believers, that no religion's holy books were written by God because all the science is wrong. All the creation stories, whether you're a Christian or a Jew or a Muslim or a Buddhist or a Taoist or whatever it might be, Shintoist, animist, and one of the thousands of animist religions in Africa and in tribal society, whatever it is, okay, all of the holy books about creation and disease and mental illness, and I could go on and on, are wrong. Just think about our own Jewish and Christian Old and New Testament and think of all the explanations of crazy people where you have to drive out demons, and we all know that there are no demons making people crazy, and we know that no disease is caused by the devil. It's caused by bacteria and or viruses and or your own body attacking itself like cancer does, and I could go on and on. But the science is all wrong. We all know the earth was not created in 7 days, and if you don't know that, I don't know what to tell you, but you need to pay attention in school, okay? But I don't understand the enormous, and the problem is once you have a religion, you have clerics, priests, rabbis, ministers, imams, and once you have clerics, they have power, and once they have power, they can exercise that power. And people, and what this Tao portion said is when people no longer trust themselves, they begin to depend upon authority. So when we live in a culture where we're constantly told to doubt ourselves and our decisions and our morality and what we do, then we tend to seek out either political or religious authority, and they're equally dangerous. Okay, it isn't the president of the United States is no less dangerous than a pope out of control. Okay, in fact, more dangerous. Of the two. And the other question is, a lot of religions have a lot of crazy shit in them. Like, for example, in the Old Testament, in I think it's Deuteronomy. There's a section about basically okaying it to kill homosexuals that we have long since thrown out in Western religions, but newer religions like Islam that are only 1,300 years old instead of, like in Judaism, nearly 6,000 years old, they still believe that shit. And that's what makes religion dangerous, okay, is when extreme beliefs. I guess what I'm really saying is the world would be better if everybody was stoned and believed in a general concept of God and called it a day. So my advice is if you have a Bible, Quran, Old or New Testament, whatever it is, Bhagavad Gita or whatever the Hindu book, I'd burn it. I mean, or that's extreme. Let me take that back. I would read it as literature, okay, and stop taking your life lessons from it. Believe in God if you wish. Believe in gods if you wish if you're a Hindu. But don't take seriously every word written by people who thought that the world was flat and the sun was powered across the sky and all that other kind of crap. I mean, there is no dichotomy between science and religion if you accept that the religion can't possibly be the Word of God. But anyway, I know I just probably offended half the people watching, and I don't know what to tell you. Although I don't think you'd be a stoner if you were real. Would stoners be real religious, Tech Master E? What do you think?
They may.
Well, listen, I have room for you. Argue me down. I'm cool. And that brings me to the end of today's show. Anyway, I think now that I've offended half the people, listen, I hope I didn't offend you. I don't mean to make fun of religion. I don't make fun of religion. If you knew me in real life, I don't. I listen. I get preached to all the time. I'm the guy that when the Mormons come to the front door, I'll invite them in for, a glass of ice water. They won't take tea or Coke because, they're Mormon. But I'll sit and shoot the shit with them. I just am not going to convert. I'll discuss religion. My mother-in-law, God bless her, who's alive and well, she used to talk to me about religion all the time because she was fascinated. I was the first Jew she ever really knew. And we talked about it a lot. My natural father he's dead now, was a rabbi. So, I mean, but anyway, that's neither here nor there. It doesn't matter what I know or I don't know. It matters what you know and what you don't know. And it only matters, remember, the last tenet of being a stoner, only you control your thoughts and emotions, only you. So nothing that I say or anybody else says, nothing that any politician does or doesn't do, nothing, you shouldn't pick your friends based on who agrees and doesn't agree. And most of all, as a stoner, smoke a lot of weed and get away from thinking if you're not for me, you're against me. Get away from that binary thinking. Well, if you don't agree with me, you must be wrong. No, you just have a different point of view. I guess that's what I'm really trying to say. Have room for other people's points of view. Have room for other people, even if you think it's crazy. Just have room for it. Because really, is it going to end your life just to nod and go along and be friendly and have a new friend? Do you really need everyone around you to agree with everything you say? Does everyone have to be in constant lockstep? What are we, machines or human beings? Somewhere along the way, we lost the idea that different ideas are kind of like the flavor in our stew. And we need to bring that back. And that's one of the things that we plan to do here on the Silver Stoner. And with that, I'm going to leave you at that thought. Thank you a ton for joining me. See you next time, next week. This is Friday. Have a great weekend. Watch Dr. Strangelove. And more than anything else, peace out.
You're listening to The Silver Stoner Show.